Aí, mas voltemos. Deu uma caidinha, mas voltemos, pessoal. Voltemos, estamos aqui. Não se desespere. Vou colocar pra você ver a história aí, galera. Vamos acompanhar essa história aí. Ó. Mania Mortal. Mortal Kombat. Então vamos.
So when Street Fighter 2 came out, I wasn't really too impressed by it. I think I finished it once, picked Zangief because I was a wrestling fan, and then kind of moved on. I eventually kind of fell in with a crowd that really got a lot out of Street Fighter 2, and so suddenly it became very apparent I need to get great at that game. One guy showed up and said, "Hey, have you heard of this other game, Mortal Kombat?" I'm like, no. What is Mortal Kombat? And he said, "Well, you know, it's like Street Fighter, but you can fucking kill people." Okay, well, we need to go see this game right now.
I absolutely remember the first time I played Mortal Kombat. It was at Lions Family Fun, my favorite arcade.
My dad would usually give my brother and me $5 each and let us run wild while he went shopping.
I was at an arcade in Virginia, the Q Lounge, in the Bronx.
Ah, Mortal Kombat é Mortal Kombat, galera. Não tem como.
Half
arcade. He took us to an arcade.
Mortal Kombat.
Up to Santa Rosa, to a place called Systems City. And it was like part skate shop, but in the back room, all the lights were off, and they had like 5 arcade machines back there.
I see this huge crowd gathered around a new cabinet.
And it was sitting there. There was nobody around it.
No one was playing it. It was just sitting there. What is this? I just remember just like a big line around the cabinet.
Everyone is crowded around Mortal Kombat. It is simultaneously exactly like and nothing like Street Fighter. You know, the film, the presentation, the real actors and actresses and all of that really just, it's so striking.
In Mortal Kombat, when you were seeing those 2 big characters on the screen, I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Instantly, it was like, oh, it's digitized. It's real people. It was like, wow, this is incredible. It's like, how are they doing this? How did this come to be?
Tá vendo? Da hora.
Blown away by how it looked, because it was a violent, bloody game. Like, that's the first time I've seen blood in a video game that I remembered.
Even from a basic high punch, you just see blood flying out of these people's heads.
Even if I couldn't do the specials of certain characters, I could fall into a rhythm that just felt so good. Just like, you know, air kick, uppercut. And I was, oh, I feel like the baddest motherfucker in the world.
In a time where you didn't see that kind of stuff in games, and especially in arcades where kids were, you know, running around with their parents, and parents were still freaking out too, kind of seeing what was happening.
My dad came up behind me. I didn't know this at the time, but the screen went dark. Kano ripped out a heart and held it up, blood dripping from it. And my dad went, "Oh, no, and whisked me out of the arcade. And that's when I knew I had to play that game, because I was not allowed to play that game.
People getting chopped in half and torsos being dismembered.
UK wins. Flawless victory fatality.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that in a video game. I didn't know that was allowed in a video game.
And we're, you know, 16, 17 at the time, so this is the most exciting thing in the world.
Oh, Mortal Kombat, cara, não tem como. Street Fighter é bom tudo, mas Mortal Kombat foi Mortal Kombat, não adianta.
The first thing that really affected me that was like, I really want to play all these characters to see
Olha lá,
what happens. This is
Kano.
before YouTube, so it wasn't like you could just go on YouTube and watch it. You had to, earn it, right?
What's Kano's backstory? What about Sonya? That's what we wanted to know about. And, they specified a lot of it kind of in, various screens and whatnot. We were hooked.
But it didn't take long from there for that game to be literally everywhere. Every single pizza place, 7-Eleven arcades, the arcades that were left at that point, all of them had a Mortal Kombat machine probably within a month.
Legal, cara. Tan, 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 tan. Tan, 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 tan. Nossa. Cara. Surreal que os caras criaram.
For the first MK game, that started with me. Coming from comic books, I had a great desire to sort of tell this story that we weren't able to tell in the game. And so I thought, what better place to do it in a comic book? I talked to Ed about it, and so Ed thought it was a great idea, and I think the both of us went to Roger Sharp to try to see if there was any money that we could get from marketing to help us produce this comic book.
I tried to always do stuff that I thought would be special. And John, pulled together, here's the comic book.
I wasn't getting paid anything extra to draw this comic, so I wrote the story and did the illustrations. Roger was able to scrape up, I think, a few $1,000s for the printing, and we were able to produce a few thousand copies of this comic. And we weren't sure how many we were going to sell. There was an advertisement in the game, and players would see the advertisement in the track mode, and they would mail in a check for $3. Sometimes they would mail cash. Ed and I would get bags of envelopes, sent to a P.O. box, and they would ship us these boxes of comics. Okay, well, who's gonna pack and mail these things? And so there was nobody to do that. So Ed and I ended up sitting in his office with boxes of comics. We were the ones opening each envelope, collecting the money, writing the addresses on the envelopes, packing the comics, and mailing them all out. I remember we did that one weekend. It was just Ed and I. And then we decided we invited other people around the office, like, hey, come and help us pack the comics, and we'll buy a pizza. Every once in a while, we'd sign one.
Vambora comer pizza.
Weird encryptions on the envelopes. Sometimes I would draw a picture on the envelope, little messages to the players. I don't know if anybody ever saved any of that stuff. Eventually, I think we were in over our heads because the stuff just kept coming.
And sales took off. We had to go back in and reprint the comic book.
And then eventually Roger, I think, handled, I don't know who he paid to do the packing and the mailing and stuff.
We were packaging and boxing up, thank you, Jeanette and Alice, to get everything out to people.
But the first, I think, few thousand comic books were hand packed and hand addressed by Ed and myself and a couple of the other folks around the office.
And that was the start of the merchandising program for Mortal Kombat.
Legal. Legal, cara. Tá doido, os caras criaram um negócio muito bacana, mano. Aí veio, ó. Bom, 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 bom. Da hora, galera, da hora. Nossa, imagina. Aí veio o Mortal Kombat. Essa daqui, ó. Que é o famoso grito da música, né? Mortal Kombat! Ó. Chega até a arrepiar, cara. Dum, 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 dum. Prepare yourself. Mortal Monday. Dia 13 de setembro.
The first time I saw a crowd gathered around a Mortal Kombat cabinet when I was 10 told me that, okay, this game is a big deal at my arcade. I had no idea if that translated outside my arcade. Then Mortal Monday happened. Not just the day itself, but the build up to it.
Seeing the zeitgeist around it was huge. Conversations around Mortal Monday were happening, the first kind of big marketing push.
Acclaim was
Aí, ó.
clearly
Olha como que era a E3, galera. Muito top, mano.
and so they were
Olha.
doing a much bigger
Mortal Kombat!
I remember them telling us that they were going to spend $10 million
Nossa,
to
muito louco.
advertise this game. And I remember saying, you know, are you sure you want to put that kind of money behind this? And you know, in retrospect, of course that was a right decision. But I remember being really paranoid thinking, you know, that they were putting a lot on this game.
The preparation for the release of Mortal Kombat was just massive. I was working at Babbage's software. Pre-sales had started early, so like we knew we were going to be just selling out. It was all I could talk about.
I remember going to see a movie, I can't remember which film it was, and they were advertising Mortal Mondays, which was one of the greatest marketing blitzes in video game history. And it was just, you know, all these random kids yelling in the middle of a city street, Mortal Kombat, right?
Aí, viu?
That commercial with like people running down the street screaming Mortal Kombat, and they were teens, and I was a little kid, and teens are the coolest thing you could be when you're a little kid.
You don't have to show screenshots or anything else necessarily. Everybody knew. All you have to do is just have somebody out in the middle of the street just putting up his arm saying Mortal Kombat. It's almost like, hi, it's here. It sells itself.
We were all like, yo, did you see that Mortal Kombat commercial? What is Mortal Kombat? And there was always like one kid to do a little more. It's a video game, but you kill people. And all of us at Maplewood Elementary School were like, whoa!
We had 2 front monitors that were just showcasing Mortal Kombat videos. And
in the comics, on the back of the comics, there were Mortal Monday ads. There were Mortal Kombat ads in magazines. There were Mortal Kombat ads in subways.
You know, just seeing the standees and the posters and things at Times Square and
the signage that was coming in, every piece of memorabilia that was coming in, and t-shirts, and it was just over the top compared to other games.
I remember just being nervous about it, thinking, I hope this game lives up to it. Even though it was a huge arcade game, you know, you just never know in the fall.
It was insane. There was a giant line, and it was just so exciting.
That's when I realized, like, this is actually a bigger deal than maybe any video game that's come before it. Mortal Kombat became a pillar of popular culture within 12 months. It was, I think, the fastest a video game had ever exploded to date.
Nothing could prepare you for it. It was, it was just insane.
A versão aqui, ó, muito bonita também essa caixinha. Opa!
We were aware that Acclaim had a deal that they were going to do all the home games because also they had done super high impact for the home. And Acclaim had their kind of production group, which was our main point of contact, but then they had the two software houses, you know, Probe and Sculptured. And so there was a lot of communication that had to kind of bounce back and forth.
Bum, 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 bum. Nossa, Mega Drive, galera. Você é louco.
Probe offered me Mortal Kombat on the
Mega
Drive, the Genesis version, and I said yes. I'm free. I'm available. Like a job's a job, and I said, well, what is it? They were able to kind of actually bring me an arcade machine into my house. And kind of started playing it, and I thought, well, this looks easy enough.
Super Nintendo, aí galera, esse videogame deixou lembranças, nostalgia, marcou gerações. Esse Super Nintendo marcou gerações, aí ó. Excellent.
And
to your sure destiny.
That did not go as well as we would have wanted it to go.
Test your mic.
Ed and I would get versions of the game, and so I would give feedback in terms of the pixel art as best I could. Of course, the home games at the time, they didn't have quite the capabilities that we did in the arcade.
A versão do arcade é muito melhor do que a versão do console normal lá. Vocês podem ver já pelo gráfico normal também. Tá vendo o pixel?
I think the biggest problem that we had
Olha lá.
wasn't as much the power of the machine, but
Isso, tá vendo? A memória é limitada.
Of the Mega Drive was. In A, we had to shrink all the sprites really down as much as we possibly could, and there's a lot of frames of animation in there. You know, we started off by kind of basically taking out every other frame, and that wasn't enough. So then we had to take out like 3 out of 5 frames, and then kind of concentrate on the important animations, the ones that let you see most. Williams have a method of writing. It's almost like a kind of multi-threading. It's like that there's a number of different programs all operating at the same time. So one of those programs operates one of the characters, one program operates one of the weapons, one of them operates the background, and all of those different little programs kind of speak to each other. That isn't a method of programming I had any experience of. It took me a while to work it out. Kind of Probe were getting very nervous because there wasn't anything on the screen. I was working, there wasn't anything on the screen. And then eventually I was able to basically kind of translate the original code almost line by line. It kind of worked, and the whole thing kind of came to life. What it meant as well, though, was that it was very accurate, you know, very close to the original arcade version in terms of how it feels playing it. So that everyone was then very happy with me, which was great.
Genesis played much better, and it had the blood, the abacab, and all that.
Oh, não sabia dessa. Ó, vai vendo. Genesis. Compra um então. Mega Genesis. Esse é o Sega Genesis. Parente do Mega Drive.
The Super Nintendo version looked great, but it didn't play as good as the Genesis version.
The programmer that was the lead, but he made some missteps at the beginning of the project, and it was really hard to finish. These were conversions. These were not original games. You're trying to take the code and the assets and port it to that platform. They had this little multi-processing system in there. He said, I don't like the way that works. I want to do it my way. So he's going against the grain the whole time.
Johnny Cage wins.
The quality of the game was something that that was important to us. I know Ed was a stickler in terms of what he was willing to approve.
Lógico, tem que ser, né? O Ed que deu nisso a tudo aí, ó. Olha o Game Boy escondido ali. Fatality. Scorpion wins.
And we were down to the wire. We were, saying that we're not going to prove it until you fix this, this, and that. And
I ended up having to help him, so it got done, but it didn't. It played not quite as well.
They needed to build millions of cartridges, and there's lead times involved with that, and so those two things kind of conflicted a couple times, and there was some tension there.
Sega Genesis, enquanto John Black da Super True Software assumiu para afinar a versão do Super Nintendo, ó. Vai vendo aí, galera, vivendo e aprendendo aí, ó. Caixinha bonita, hein? Lógico que a do Super Nintendo não fica pra trás, né, galera? Pelo amor de Deus, olha isso aqui. Excelente. E vale lembrar que a Mamma Mia Game tem esses jogos aqui, tá, galera? Disponível pra tua coleção aí, se você quiser. Tem a versão original americana, com caixa, sem caixa. E tem a versão europeia também. Nossa, olha o Goro como é que era. Ah, bem louquinho também. Ah, em alemão, ó.
Mustard and myself grew up in a really small town. The closest thing you would have to an arcade machine is the local bowling alley may have had like a light gun game, but that's pretty much it. It was only the home versions that allowed us to experience the different franchises, and I feel like I unofficially speak for quite a lot of people our age, how important getting those home versions as good as they were was. So that the rest of us could still experience it in different parts of the world, that arcades weren't as common, especially those small towns.
Which side was I on in the home versions? There's only one side. Like, what do you it's just the Genesis version. There's only one version of the game. The Super Nintendo version is a travesty by comparison.
I actually thought that even though the Genesis was a little behind graphically than the Super Nintendo,
a jogabilidade.
The grittier look of the Genesis version, it really felt kind of down and dirty the way Mortal Kombat should.
I mean, also the Genesis version had the blood code. And the real fatalities and the dullard code and all the other cool stuff in it. I think that made up for like the music in the Genesis version being really hokey and some of that other stuff.
My friend had a Genesis. They got Mortal Kombat. His mom would come in every now and then just to look at the screen to make sure there was no blood flying.
Finish him.
And so what we would do is we would enter the blood code, we'd play a match or two, and then we'd hit reset, turn off the blood code, keep playing when she came in, and then she'd leave and we'd turn the blood code back on.
Nintendo screwed the pooch when they didn't allow the blood in the game, and they instead
Nossa,
put sweat in it.
tá vendo?
The Genesis version outsold
Nossa,
the SNES version,
é verdade,
like
não tinha,
like that.
não tinha percebido isso. No Mortal 1 do Super Nintendo não tem o sangue, é verdade, galera.
The Super Nintendo version feels like mud. Like the act of playing that game is so unlike playing the actual arcade.
É verdade.
So I really wanted Mortal Kombat. Not just to fit in, but because I loved it. I wanted it so bad, but my family didn't have a ton of money.
Nossa, ele tem o Mortal 2 mini fliperama ali, ó. Ah, legal, hein?
Finally afford Mortal Kombat for the Game Boy. And that game is a experience. When you play Mortal Kombat in the arcade, it's a little bit heavy and you feel the power of those hits. Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy moved like two frozen people were slowly trying to get close enough to hug. Like when you'd push the punch button, it would eventually move the fist forward a little bit at maybe 1 frame per minute. I cannot do a fatality in this game. I know for a fact they exist because the computer can do the fatalities on that pit level. Instead of having them fall off the stage onto spikes, at the end of each part of the level were just little drawn spikes in the background that you could knock them onto. And I think that that was their, like, makeshift solution for having a stage-based fatality. Even as a kid, I knew it was not the best version, but I loved it so much. I even put in a Game Genie code that let you play as Goro. Like, I did every secret possible. I was gonna squeeze every single dollar I put into that game. And I still own it, and I'll still play it occasionally because I'm kind of a masochist, but there's something special about it. There's something that's kind of, like, pure about a Mortal Kombat game that's so weird and watered down and slow that it almost circles back around to being kind of creepy and mysterious.
I mean, they may not have been like arcade perfect, but to us, we didn't know any better. We didn't have anything to comparison. All we cared about was just, you know, play the game, have fun with it, you know, and enjoy what we were doing, and that was about it.
É, a gente vai conhecendo a história profunda assim do Mortal Kombat, lógico. Você é louco. Mortal Kombat! $39 na época. 94. Ah, que top, olha isso aqui. Política, eu vou te falar, hein? Ó, vai vendo, galera. Tá vendo? Classificação. Bora, lógico.
Our experience with the first Mortal Kombat was, it turned out great, but, you know, the game was very rushed. It was an 8-month project from, you know, concept to shipped game, which was crazy when you think about that. You know, certainly in my head, there was 10 things that I would have done differently.
Shortly after Mortal Kombat 1, Ed and I started to think about what do we want to do next. And one idea we had was we wanted to do a Star Wars game. Ken Fedesna came down, and I remember us talking excitedly about Star Wars. And Ken's response was, you know, Star Wars, what are you guys talking about with this Star Wars business? You guys have got to do a sequel to this game. And so that was the first time that I thought, oh, okay, I guess, you know, we're signed up for a sequel.
So new hardware came, new tools came.
Warren Davis and all these guys, you know, Todd Allen, everybody was like working on tools to make things better, and we just inherited that.
Olha o King aí. Uou!
Oh my God! One of the things that is better about Mortal Kombat 2 from Mortal Kombat 1 is
Nossa,
the graphics.
Nossa, os bonecos atrás dele ali.
Off of VHS tapes, and it was kind of blurry and stuff.
We eventually started capturing images directly onto the hard drive as opposed to putting it on videotape and then going to the hard drive.
Okay, ready? Is it live or is it ready to go? That was good.
That allowed us to knock out that losty videotape format that would bleed onto everything.
It just became a more efficient process, a cleaner image for sure.
Outstanding.
We added much better, like, kind of combo system that was going.
Jax wins.
You know, you could turn around and kick. Which to this day I can't believe the first Mortal Kombat doesn't have. A lot bigger of a roster. We wanted to expand, so we had 12 characters, and, you know, added Jax. That was huge. Katana Molina, who are synonymous with Mortal Kombat at this point.
One of the reasons I know that we swapped Sonya for Katana Molina was because of their masks. We were able to get 2 for 1. So the same palette swapping technique we used for Scorpion and Sub-Zero, we thought, okay, let's take advantage of this with the female characters.
Katana wins. Fatality.
Tony Goski, graphic genius.
Hey, it's Ed Boom.
Ed, John Tobias, and Mark Jamal walk in my office. Ed says, hey Tony, we're thinking, do you want to work on Mortal Kombat? I was an instant yes.
Tony Goski was working on a game called NBA Jam, and he was doing a great job, but he, you know, in his heart, he was a traditional painter, and so when Mortal Kombat 2 came along, he was a perfect fit.
It was suited my style and things I enjoyed. Fantasy art, starting to get into surrealism.
Caramba.
Like say Dali and Magritte, and I kind of just went that direction, you know.
Tony Goski defined the majority of the look and feel of Mortal Kombat 2, specifically the backgrounds.
Tony's influence came into what does Outworld look like? What does, you know, this really mysterious Mortal Kombat, this fantasy Mortal Kombat, what does that look like?
Introducing the Outworld was huge because it completely carved a new look for Mortal Kombat. kind of use like Chinese influence, but with graphic and surrealism kind of coming together. Pit was an iconic stage in MK1, so we made the Pit 2. The person, dun dun dun, gets hit, and it would do what we would call a camera cut now, but it would just do a top view of a person doing like this, and the background would scale up, and
Reptile wins.
He came up with this living forest, and he put my face on the trees.
Oh man.
Ah, não acredito.
All had to be drawn.
No digitizing for Pony.
What? I did digitize the tree, and that's face. We would digitize that, and then I would draw on top of it the bark and everything to make it look like a tree.
É a cara do Ed, eu não acredito nisso, cara.
And things that are like shocking. You go all the way to the left, and there's a tree kind of looking straight down the fight line, and that's based off Ash from The Evil Dead. That was like one of my favorite backgrounds to work on.
When I was a teenager, I did some stop-action animation just for fun with a Super 8 camera. With clay and toys and stuff like that.
Nossa,
when
Kintaro.
doing Kintaro, there weren't a lot of frames to begin with. It's like, and you would hang on that last, hit or whatever. I would sort of try to mimic what John was doing with main characters as I was doing Kintaro.
For me, what was most exciting was there was this fiction that we would tell a little bit of story just through a couple sentences in the attract mode. And so once the talk of a sequel came about, I knew that, okay, this is our opportunity to tell all this story that we alluded to in the first game. Now we can sort of move things forward.
And so, it was just, we're so young. It was just like, cool, we're going to do a number 2. Okay. And that's about my thought process, cool, I still have a job.
Legal. Isso era pra ser o Kintaro.
Initially,
a voz, né?
Nossa. For the first Mortal Kombat as Shang Tsung.
Kano, Scorpion, fight. Excellent.
And then we wanted to go a different direction for the second one, and so they created this character Shao Kahn.
Kung Lao. Baraka.
Fight.
And I'm sure everyone was like, oh yeah, that's going to be Steve.
It's high impact football. Fire, power, 1, 2, enemy destroyed. I am the Black Knight. Voice work in games, I loved it. I loved doing it. If they wanted me, I was there.
If you want a dude with a heavy, deep voice, then you could pitch it down some more and make it sound super basso profundo. That's the guy.
They wanted me to be a 200-year-old Asian man, martial artist. Dan had a structure and a language and a way for me to speak.
Here's the list, do these things, and then a little bit of coaching.
Sonya, Baraka, round 1, fight.
And he, did a great job, and that's it. That's what you hear in the game.
Finish him. Baraka wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
That voice is, it's my favorite voice. It's fatality. I want to be that guy.
Whoopee!
So Ed and I, we worked on these games, and we really liked playing super high impact. There was a machine in the hallway in the back, and we'd go there, have a game or two. In that game, you pick your play, and then the lines come together before you hike the ball. And so as they're doing that, I'm saying, I predict that you're toast. And that evolved into, I predict toasty! And Ed would crack up. George Petro said, you guys should put some of that silly stuff you do in the game. And we're like, yeah, whatever. And go on our day. And then, like, I don't know, a couple weeks later, Ed talks to me. He's like, hey, would you be cool if we, like, took your face and, like, when every 100th uppercut, your face comes out and says toasty in the corner of the screen? And I'm like, sure. Let's do that. So that's how that happened. Silliness, right? It's good to have a little bit of silliness.
Legal.
Just try to jump up. Just try to actually jump straight up and land on your back. I can do that, but I need to land the other way. Is it Elvis? Is it? Okay, ready? Ready? Is it live or is it ready to go? That was good.
That was much better.
There's a story. There were four.
Hey, Tony, what did you do in the Turtles 3? You just played
Hey, you know I saw the trailer for that yesterday?
Yeah, you're the one that told me about that. They interviewed him and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right, but it's like 2 frames that that we use.
See, like that's not bad. Okay, you know what? That's enough.
Oh my God, that was the best one.
Kitana. Nossa. Mortal Kombat!
Once in a lifetime, a game comes along that transcends our industry. The theme connects with something deep inside us and embedded firmly in the popular culture.
Fatality.
Once in a lifetime, a game takes on a life of its own. To millions worldwide, it becomes more than just a video game. It becomes an obsession, a controversy. And they just can't wait to take it home.
Mortal Kombat! Huh?
We've created a monster! Actually, we've created several. What if we could outdo our
Aí, ó.
previous
Lá vem o
successors?
2.
What if we could create a new fighting machine? One that eclipsed every fighting game ever made. One with more depth and more characters. What if, amidst all the furor and recognition, we could release to the world the ultimate fighting experience? We can, and we will, right now.
Mortal Kombat 2. Raiden. Essa máquina é top, galera.
Here it is, Mortal Kombat 2. More characters, 3 times more images, more secret moves, more battlegrounds, more hidden surprises. And it's the first video game to feature our crisp-clear DCS sound of tile.
Olha o arcade, que da hora. Cara, esse arcade aqui, ó, pra mim é um dos melhores arcade que tem, cara. E um dos mais bonitos que tem do Mortal Kombat. Ó. Toasty! Ah, o Noob Saibot. Ó. Caramba, foi... Olha, cara, isso aí eu não sabia, velho. Soco poderoso de Jax. Caramba, mano. Ah, o aplauso sônico de... Não. Vai vendo, galera. Começou lá. Tive uma TV dessa, galera. Tive uma TV dessa quando eu era pequenininha. Joguei meu Atari. Meu primeiro videogame foi na TV dessa daí, ó. Você tá louco.
I didn't know it was coming out.
I knew it was probably being worked on, and there were just rumors floating about.
I never even thought of a sequel. I was so fixated on the first game.
I had no idea. Nobody at my school had mentioned it.
It wasn't until I walked into it was an arcade called Uncle Bob's, and there it was already.
The first thing I saw was somebody slicing someone in half with Kung Lao's hat. And I remember being like, what? There's a Mortal Kombat 2? And it is crazy!
A friend came running into band class one day and said, oh, there's a Mortal Kombat 2. I saw this new character. He's a monster. He's got knives for hands.
Baraka was the first character I picked. I kept pumping quarters in. It was so exciting to see the advancements. And the new characters.
There is a specific reason that Mortal Kombat 2 is my absolute favorite game in the entire
falei pra vocês aí, ó.
And that is because of Katana's easiest in the world fatality. Walk up to the person and hit block, 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 high kick.
Katana wins.
I was immediately a master of her.
Fatality.
I still main Melina whenever I play MK2, and I can do that back down, low punch to do that kind of roll thing, and then forward, low kick to do that kind of teleport from the ceiling kind of thing.
It looked bigger, it looked better, it looked badder, it was bloodier. The animation was more fluid. It looked like a comic book, and that's not something I ever thought I would ever want from a Mortal Kombat game.
Sub-Zero wins. Fatality.
But like I said, I never even dreamed of a sequel. One day there it was, and it was fantastic.
The favorite characters are back, so you have kind of that step into it. The excitement was just incredible.
I remember seeing Mortal Kombat 2. It's the level that has it Shao Kahn, the big bad guy, who had the people chained up on the pedestals in the background. You were fighting your opponent, but there was a sense of storytelling in the actual level design, and that was one of the first times I had seen that and been like, that's really cool and that's really, really clever.
And I still love the Game Boy version. It's just because Game Boy was the system I played the most. And what's interesting is that Mortal Kombat 2 for the Game Boy is fantastic. It is an amazing fighting game port. It's an amazing fighting game for a portable system with no power.
I played a ton of Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo. I would have friends over. My living room kind of became a mini arcade. All the blood and gore was there, and it was fantastic.
Fatality.
It felt pretty darn close to arcade perfect. So, haha, that time Nintendo came out on top.
Do primeiro, né, galera? É lógico. Nossa, muito louco. Mortal Kombat 2 é um dos melhores que tem.
Fatality.
A versão do Super Nintendo aí, ó.
I got put on as a lead on the second one, and that's where we really made the right decisions, which was nice. The idea was to just convert the code line by line and build the multi-processing system so it would work on the Super Nintendo, which of course is a different language of assembly.
Toasty!
We, I think, started, is November, somewhere like that, in 1993. We had to be done in July, and so we didn't show them anything until April. We just got our first pass of Mortal Kombat 2 for the SNES. Wow. The entire video department here at Midway is absolutely blown away at how well you have matched the feel of our arcade version on Mortal Kombat 2. We can already see that this will be the version to have, as the graphics and gameplay are awesome. So we just continued down that road, got the game done on time, and it scored really high.
Foi sucesso. Mortal Kombat 2, galera. Tá louco. Quem viveu essa época aí não vai esquecer nunca. Comenta aí, galera. Vocês estão gostando aí? Comenta aí.
A game that was more like the arcade, as much as we could get it anyway. Put the rating on it and not have to have green blood.
Eita porra. Tunic wins.
I don't know if the Genesis guys would debate me, but I felt like it was the de facto version for at least Mortal Kombat 2.
And the ongoing debate that still sort of seems to rage on up to the present day, like between the SNES version and the Genesis version. SNES version is perceived as being like the winner, it's the better version. And that's like, I think, largely because it's like more complete version. The reason the SNES one has got more stuff than ours, because they're like both made for the same size sort of cartridge, is that it's a lower resolution system, right? So therefore their art assets are smaller, and all the little sort of size differences like add up.
Jax wins.
You end up with space for fatality.
Fatality.
The fact that the speech samples are missing, that's the thing that like kind of stands out to me. The way I got the Genesis version is like a little bit sort of convoluted. Basically, Paul had done the first one, Paul were offered the second one, and they offered it to Paul, which is like kind of logical sort of thing to do, and Paul turned it down.
Idiocy, stupidity. At the time I was offered it, I did think that actually MK2 wouldn't ever come out, that it would be banned. There was a bunch of people in the studio kind of talking about violence and talking about this game, and so I didn't particularly want to spend all that effort.
Vacilou, hein?
That then got banned. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
So then they offered it to me. Right? And I'd never done any Mega Drive stuff before. They used this thing that is like a cooperative multitasking system. And it's the first time I'd ever like kind of come across it. And like once I like kind of understood it properly, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Basically, I ripped it off. But every game that I wrote subsequent to that, I used that system. Everybody was like kind of happy with the version that I did, and that was no bad thing. I mean, it's just like a really good game, you know. Hard to mess it up.
Nossa, 32X. É, Mortal Kombat 2, cara, isso é doido. Olha isso aqui. Nossa. As caixinhas são bonitas, cara. A do 32X é bonita também, hein? Nossa. Nossa, mano. Oh.
MK2 was great and stuff, but I really didn't want us to just do the same game with prettier graphics.
Aí saiu Mortal 3, aí quebrou todo mundo mesmo, ó.
We were always trying to one up what we did. Like obviously MK1 we had the, you know, you'd fall into the pit. And that was great.
Mortal
It was always
3.
asking the question, well, what can we do next?
Reptile wins.
MK3 was like, now we're going to knock you upwards. You know, now we're going to knock you downwards.
Right.
Certainly the visual qualities of the backgrounds changed over time quite significantly.
As the story took it, MK3 was based more on Earth.
Nossa.
Technology played a part.
I had been learning how to sculpt things in 3D. I created what became the subway, and I showed Ed, I'm like, hey, we could actually just, instead of like going out and videoing stuff and getting things out of books or, you know, whatever, or even just drawing them, we could actually build them in 3D with correct lighting and, you know, stuff like that. And it could even help us do the parallaxing if we wanted to. He was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's go that route. So a lot of the backgrounds, I would kind of build them in 3D, and then Tony would take that and draw on it and you know, dress them up, make them look better from there.
There's a look that's missing. It looked kind of too plastic and toyish and simple, but it was great for a starting point. We would always touch up over it. That would give it its clean look. And one of the backgrounds that we started with 3D was the Soul Chamber. I always like a star in the background, and I just coined the name Soulnado for the souls inside the mouth, and I drew that in deluxe paint, frame by frame.
I did a drawing of this in 3D just to make it any size and any lighting, any angle you wanted. It's just ornamental, you know, it's just like kind of a really neat background thing.
You know, we would always in Mortal Kombat put in names, our names, you know, hidden somewhere sometimes. And mainly it was the graveyard.
I'm sure that I probably designed in 3D the tombstones, and Tony probably drew in our names. A lot of that grass, and maybe even putting the background in there, like the sky and stuff. Dave Mikacic joined our team, and he knew about Photoshop.
Ok, galera, vamos descansar e a gente volta com mais Mortal Kombat amanhã.
Fortress in the distance. What I gave was kind of stale. It was very stark. He added like haze and all kinds of cool atmosphere with Photoshop. We started using Photoshop a lot after that.
Once we get the digitized image, it's a lot like painting. And right now we're going through a process where